Hey everyone, welcome back to the studio. Today we're making a super fun keychain inspired by fringe style earrings. Instead of working in a pair like we normally would with brick stitch earrings, we're just gonna make one single piece that will hang from a key ring, perfect for your backpack, your bag, your keys obviously, maybe giving it as a gift to somebody. Let's take a quick look at the materials we're going to need for this project. First up, we have these pretty orange base beads. We've gone with a bigger pony bead for this project just because it's a little bit easier for beginners. The eye in the bead is a little bit bigger, and so we're going to be working with these glass pony beads today for the base and the fringe. We've just gone with a single color for the top of your fringe, just for the ease of learning how to do the basic brick stitch. Once you've mastered the skills, you can design your own pattern, work in different colors, and get creative with the whole process. We have these pretty rainbow beads that we can use to make the fringe. There's a variety of colors in there, so these beads can be the creative outlet, I guess, of the piece. If you find, these top base beads a little plain, we've got these rainbow beads to use for the fringe that you can get creative with. Our beading thread, we're going to be using this 6-pound FireLine fishing line. You can go with something like this, a WildFire or a FireLine that are produced by beading companies for this crafting purpose, but these are going to run you quite a bit more money for less than this. I just picked this up at Halford's. It's a 6-pound FireLine. This is 110 yards. This is WildFire from Beadalon. It's 50 yards. I think I paid like $20 for it. So if you're looking to just grab something that will be the best for practicing or just using while you're getting started, this is definitely a great choice. For this activity, you're also going to need a big eye beading needle. And this needle is great for beginners. It's 2 wires fused together at either end. I'm just going to use my nail to open it up there so you can see. So the whole center is where you can put your thread in any part of here. This is a perfect needle for beginners. You pop your thread in the needle, push it all the way down to the end. You can let it close like that, and this big eye beading needle is going to hold your thread in place. It is very hard to slip, and if your thread does slip out of it, this needle is the easiest needle to be able to rethread. So this is the one we're going to be using for this activity. You're also going to want a keychain finding, just something that you can put your fringe onto. So this is the one that we picked for this activity, this cute little heart-shaped kind of carabiner style finding. Our fringe is going to go on this end, and this heart-shaped end is the part that you can attach to your keys, your backpack, your wallet, your bag, your purse, whatever. And then we have just a large jump ring for attaching. Some tools that will also make your life easier for this activity are a pair of scissors for cutting and trimming your threads. We'll just put those to the side for now. A pair of pliers, which will just make opening and closing this jump ring a little easier. You can use your fingers, but I promise you it will not be that pleasant, and the pliers definitely allow you to open and close it while maintaining the integrity of the ring shape. And then last we have a lighter. This is just a candle lighter. You can use any lighter will do. This is just for melting the ends of your thread in the finishing process, which just helps secure everything and just keep your threads from slipping out in any way. Okay. Moving on. So starting the fringe keychain, we're gonna work a brick stitch, which is similar to a square stitch in which you're just building beads on top of one another like little stacks. And we're gonna go up. Okay, so we're gonna start the top of our keychain with our orange beads here. I've cut about 3 feet of my FireLine fishing line. I'm just gonna open up my needle like that and pop the thread right through. Give myself a little bit of a tail, just pull it down to the end there like that. It's tricky to see. The line is clear, so it makes for nice finishing because you can't really see it, but it is a little bit tricky to demonstrate the threading. Okay, so I'll close that up and my line is nice and secure. You give it a light tug, it shouldn't move. It might a little bit, but don't worry, this big eye beading needle is really easy to rethread. So we're gonna start our brick stitch by picking up 4 beads. 2, 3, 4. 4 beads. We're gonna pull them down to the tail of our FireLine. We're gonna leave a tail, tricky to see, there, you can see those running across, of about 3 or 4 inches. This just kind of gives us something to hang on to. You can see like that. It makes it easier to just like weave in that little piece at the end. So what you can do is you can grab your tail, like I said, leave a couple inches, 3 or 4 inches, just to hold on to, and then you can just maybe hold your beads like across your finger. Just run the line in the back, just however you need to hold it in order to keep those beads in place. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our beading needle, this is the top, where the thread is coming out, the portion of it that's attached to your needle, and we're gonna come up through those 4 beads from the bottom and pull our needle and thread all the way through until you've made a bit of a circle with them. Okay, and now what we're gonna do to start our brick stitch is just kind of fold these in half so they're laying side by side. If you're finding that this the end of this, your little tail is slipping too much, you can put a little stopper bead there. Maybe I'll do that just to show just a little helpful tip in case. This FireLine is kind of slippery and our pony beads are a little bit slippery. So if I just put a little stopper bead on like that, and I'm just gonna tie it on to my tail, and you can kind of just pull it down a little bit and then snug your beads up against it, and then that'll help them to not slip down while you're trying to build this. Like I said, you can use a stopper bead or not, depending on what you're comfortable with. Sometimes when we're beginning, it's best to, just have these little things in place that help us, and then later on, as you get more experienced, you probably will find that you don't really need to use them anymore. So there we go, we have our 4 beads on. This stopper bead also kind of helps us like mark the sides, because we're going to be working back and forth like that. Okay, so our first 4 beads, and you'll know the bottom because that's where the stopper bead is, and we have our thread coming out of this right hand bead on the bottom here, through the bottom. So then we're going to go ahead and we're going to pick up 2 beads. And we're going to do what has been called, or what I have heard called, chasing beads. So that means if the thread is coming out of the bottom bead, after you pick up your next 2 beads, you're going to put your needle through the top bead. So if the thread is running out the bottom, we're going to circle back and put the needle through the top. And I'm going to show you what that's going to look like. And hopefully that'll just be able to demonstrate what the chasing means. Okay, so through the top, and what that does is it brings the next set of beads down and right next to the set of beads that came before it. So what we're doing is we're building a row here of beads that are stacked 2 high and then next to each other, and we're going to create a row of 9. So we've chased our thread, and now we have the thread, I'll get you in a little bit closer here, coming out of these middle ones, which you can't build on. So what we need to do after we've added our 2, we've chased our thread from the bottom to the top, and now it's coming out of the bottom of these middle ones again, is put our needle back through those 2 beads that we just put on from the bottom of the top. And now our thread is going to be coming out of the top. And you'll notice, like, as you go, it's easier to snug the beads up. Now you can see they're kind of laying nice and uniform next to each other. Okay, so we're going to pick up 2 more beads, and now our thread is coming out of the top, so we're going to chase it by putting our needle up through the bottom and pull your thread all the way through, and they're going to kind of snap up into place there, but our thread is going to be coming out of the top of the beads before it. So we need to take our needle and put it through the top of those 2 beads that we just put on, and pull your thread all the way through. Oh, it's okay if it pulls away. You can just, oh, I got a little knot in my SureLine here. That happens sometimes. If you just treat it really gingerly, it'll, you should be able to kind of snap it out. And now just pull and snug those beads down. There we go. So we're going to be doing an odd count, and the reason why an odd count works better than an even count is because as you build a fringe, typically the shape that we're going for is either a triangle or kind of a dome shape. So we're going to be working decreases as we carry on up. So we're going to work a few beads across, and we'll just see how many is going to look good for this keychain. So we're going to pick up 2 more beads. We've got 4 on right now. Pick up 2 more beads. The thread is coming out of the bottom, so we're going to put our needle through the top, pull it down, pull it down. Now the thread is coming out of the bottom of these set, and then we're going to put it back up through the bottom of the 2 that we just put on, and pull your thread all the way through. There we go. So that's 5. Pick up 2 more. I think it could be a little bit wider. The thread is coming out of the top, so we're going to put our needle through the bottom. And now the thread is coming out of the top of this one right here, so we're going to put our needle through the top of the beads that we just put on, and pull our thread all the way through. Oh gosh, here we go. Every every once in a while I get a thread that just likes to tangle up, and just be gentle with it. So if your thread gets knotted, or your FireLine, or pardon me, your SureLine gets knotted, be gentle with it. Try not to pull it too hard because that will tighten knots down and make it a lot harder to get them out. If you just kind of tug them gently, often you can just sort of tug it loose and it'll come undone. Okay, so that's 6, which is an even number. We don't want an even number, so I'm going to pick up 2 more beads. I've got my SureLine coming out of the bottom, so we're going to put our needle in through the top, pull it down. Our thread is coming out of this one, the bottom of this one, so we're going to go up through the bottom, secure it.
So originally I thought we would do 7 beads across, but then I decided that we would do 9.
I feel like rows. Okay, so pick up 2 more beads. The SureLine is coming, your thread is coming out of the top of this one, so we're going to put our needle through the bottom, pull it through, and the thread is now coming through the top of this one, so we're going to secure it down by putting our needle through the top of the 2 beads that we just put on. That's 8. Yeah, let's go one more. Let's pick up 2 beads. The thread is coming out of the bottom, this one, so we're going to chase it, putting our needle through the top, pulling through. Your thread is coming out of the bottom of these 2 beads, so we're going to reinforce by going up through the bottom of the 2 beads that we just put on. Okay, so now we have this beautiful brick foundation row with 9 sets across, and we're going to be working up into a triangle shape like this. So we're going to be working some decreases in order to get the shape. So moving forward, instead of working through the holes of the beads like we have been doing, we are going to be coming up through what we call these little bridges of thread in between. I don't know if you can see that. And that's where we build our rows from now on. So what we have to do in order to decrease and create the triangle shape is we're going to just be working in single rows, so they won't be stacked in 2 like this anymore. This foundation row of 2 is really nice because it gives us more space for the bridge to work in between. So this method is a little bit easier when you're just starting out, when you're just beginning. But you don't later on, if you just want to work a foundation row of one bead each, you can do that, but this is just what's easier for right now. So we're going to pick up 2 beads, and we're not going to go through this first bridge because that would not be decreasing, that would be setting us up for an increase. We're going to go through the second bridge, and you can kind of poke your needle, and we're always going to be coming from behind, not in front. So my beads kind of want to be popping up a little bit. So you can poke your needle right through the hole in the middle of the 2 beads there, and then you're going to pull through. just take it slow. If your thread bunches up, just go slow. So you can see my 2 beads kind of snapped into place. Sometimes they'll go up like that, or you know, you want them to lay like this. They kind of snapped into place. And so what we're gonna do, and you'll need to just keep your eyes on the bridge right there, because the thread needs to wrap around it. So if you have poked your thread through, but you go back up on the other side and through the bead, your bead is going to fall off. So you need to make sure that once you've come up through the bridge, that your thread is fully through and that you're on the other side of it, and you're going to want to bring your needle up through that first bead, pull it all the way through. Sorry, I guess this is the second bead. And then you're gonna go back through that first bead, like this, pull it all the way through. And then we're gonna come back up through that second bead. This just sort of reinforces this on the end of the row. And you can kind of see, or you will be able to see as we go along, that this row is now a little bit shorter. So the setup row for each side is always going to involve 2 beads, but after that, every bridge bead is just going to be 1 bead. So we're going to pick up 1. We're going to go from behind through the next set of beads, so underneath the thread bridge, pull our needle all the way through, and that's going to sit right next to those ones that we just put on, making sure that your thread is on the other side of the bridge, and your bead hole is on the other side of the bridge. You're going to poke your needle back through the bead and pull it all the way through. We're just going to keep doing that until we hit the end. And the SureLine is a little bit rigid, so you may get a little bit of like popping, like these beads kind of pop up a little bit, especially as you sort of snug them down. And they should kind of form themselves into place later on. It's just because these pony beads are a little bit bigger. They're round, so they're a little bit more slippery, and so is the SureLine. It's a little bit slippery too, but don't worry about it. We should be able to see the shape kind of forming as we carry on here. So from behind through the next set of beads, so under that thread bridge, pull through, and take your needle and put it back up through the bead that we just put on. Pull, oops, snug it down. There we go. Pick up another bead, through, underneath the thread bridge, pull through, and then up through that bead, and then pull through, and snug it down. Okay. Poke it through underneath the thread bridge there, pull through, and then up through that bead that we just put on, making sure that your needle is on the other side of the thread bridge. Okay, and then from behind, poke through, and up through the bead, snug it down. Oops. Okay, and this is the last bead. So we're always decreasing 1. So from behind, poke through, and up. Okay, so that's our first 3 rows ready. Okay, let's carry on. So what we're going to do now is we're going to flip our work, working from the other side now, and I guess some people work it all on the same side, like from, if you're holding it like this to begin with, they'll work it like this. I have a hard time with that, so I always just flip it. It's fine. This is, we're not following a pattern here, so this isn't tricky to try to figure out where you are. If you're reading a pattern, you have to read it back and forth, but this is all the same color, so it's fine. We're gonna pick up 2 beads. Oops. Pick up 2 beads. And again, we're not going through that first thread bridge. We're going through the second thread bridge. So you can, if you want to go directly underneath the thread, if that's more helpful, or if you're having trouble, if you're struggling getting your needle through that, when you're working with small beads, sometimes everything can feel a little bit tight. You can always go through here as well. Your thread's gonna migrate up. So you can tuck your needle under the thread bridge, the second thread bridge, and you pull all the way through, and your needle, your beads are gonna stack like that. Then we're gonna go back up through the second bead. Oops. Down through the first bead, and then up through the second bead again. There, snug it down. You can kind of see with the decreases that our kind of triangular shape is starting to be visible. Okay, so from here, just pick up 1 bead, coming from behind and into or up under the next thread bridge. Pull through and up through that bridge, or through the bead, pardon me. Picking up a bead underneath the bridge and up through the bead. Picking up a bead from behind, up through the bridge. After a while, you're going to hear your needle, your beads start to kind of snap into place. It's a really satisfying noise. Picking up a bead, oops, 1 bead, under the thread bridge, and up through the bead. Picking up a bead and underneath that last thread bridge. If your beads have started to curl up, don't worry about it. They're all gonna fix themselves as the piece continues to build, and then up through that last bead. It's all kind of a trust the process sort of a vibe. So, and I'm just gonna keep my stopper bead on there. That just shows me kind of where we started. We're gonna flip the work again, and we're gonna pick up 2 beads. FireLine's tangled here. We're gonna pick up 2 beads. And again, we're not coming through this first bridge, we're coming through the second bridge, because we always want to be decreasing 1 on every row. And we're going to go up through the second bead, down through the first bead, and then up through the second bead again. Snug it down. See, it's kind of everything's starting to sit a bit more squarely. They're never going to be perfectly square with these round beads, but I kind of like the way it looks. And these glass beads are they have a really lovely texture to hold in your hands. So, picking up a bead underneath the thread bridge, pull through, and back up. Picking up a bead underneath the thread bridge, pull through and up. Picking up a bead underneath the thread bridge, pull through and up through the bead. Picking up a bead and underneath, and that'll be the last thread bridge. Pull through and up through that last bead. So you can, whenever I tighten down, I always tend to pull to the left. It kind of, because the beads, when they're round like that, they tend to curl this way. So if I pull the thread kind of to the left, it sort of encourages them to sort of spread out a little bit. You can kind of see that it's looking more triangular already. Okay, so picking up 2 beads, not underneath the first thread bridge, underneath the second. Pull through, up through the second bead, down through the first bead, and up through the second bead again. Good. Oops. Sometimes your thread will get caught on things. Okay. So picking up 1 bead underneath the next thread bridge. Oops. Underneath the next thread bridge. Pull it through and coming back up through a bead. Pick up a bead underneath the thread bridge. Pull it through and then up through that bead again. And then picking up the last bead, up through the last thread bridge, pulling it through and up again. These glass beads have a really pleasant little clicking noise. It's so lovely. Okay, turn, picking up 2 beads underneath the second thread bridge, pull through, up through the second bead, down through the first bead, and back up through the second bead again. Picking up 1 bead underneath the thread bridge and back up through the bead. Picking up 1 bead, back through the last thread bridge and then back up through that. Turn. Picking up 2 beads through the second thread bridge, back up through the second bead, down through the first bead, and back up through the second bead again. Picking up 1 bead underneath the last thread bridge, back up through that bead, and then flip your work. This will be the last row because 2 beads is perfect for adding a little loop for our little keychain loop. So picking up 2 beads, and we're gonna go underneath the second thread bridge like we always do when we start. Obviously there's no more following this. So, oh, and my thread got twisted, but that's okay. I went through the thread bead, the thread bridge below it. Okay, let's try that again. Up through the second thread bridge here. Okay, there. Snapped into place properly. Okay, then up through that second bead and down through the first bead. And then up through the second bead again. So that's the top basically finished. We're gonna create a little bead loop to hang our jump ring off of and attach it to our keychain findings. So the little loop will go, we'll make a bead loop here, we'll attach the jump ring to both the fringe and the keychain, and that's how it'll all go together in the end. So we're gonna pick up, let's say, how does 3 beads look? No, we're gonna need a few more. Let's pick up 5. 5 is perfect. So picking up 5 beads, we're gonna come back down, so you can see there's our stopper bead. We're gonna, our SureLine is coming out of this bead right here. We're gonna go through the neighbor, come through, and now you can see that our 5 beads have made a little loop like that. Okay, so we're gonna come up through this first bead again. And we're gonna go all the way back through all of those beads and down that second bead one more time. Oops, my FireLine is caught. And the clear is really tricky to see, so make sure that you're doing this in an area that's well lit or with a lamp. The clear SureLine is tricky to see because it's clear. Okay, so through all of the beads again and down through the first bead. Now that we've got our little hook on there, looking really cute, we're gonna take our SureLine and we're going to, it's coming out of this very top second bead on the last row that we did, and we're just going to thread it down the side of, down all of these side beads, so it's coming out of this, the very corner bead on the base. So you may have to take it one bead or a couple beads at a time. If you are able, you can thread it for as many beads as will go on your needle. You want to make sure you have enough needle to like pull the SureLine through. So, okay, at this point, we're going to pop our needle off. We're going to leave our working line, and now we have to kind of deal with this tail that we have here. So I'm going to pull my stopper bead off. And I'm going to thread I'm going to thread the tail where the stopper bead was on through my big eye needle. And we're going to be weaving this tail in. So what we want to do is the tail's coming out of this very first bead. So we're gonna go up through the neighbors, the two neighbors. And what I like to do is weave this tail up until it's like kind of in this area, just so that it's out of the way. We're going to be working threads back and forth through these base beads for the fringe. So the less sure line running through it means the more room that we're going to have to run threads through it. So I like to come up through a few beads and weave it in closer to the top. So like that, and pull through. If things get tight, you can always use your pliers to pull your needles. You have to be a little tiny bit careful with the glass beads though, because what happens is when you have so many threads running through them, you try to force them, the glass beads will break. So and then you either have to figure out a way of like installing a new bead, and there's really no perfect way to do it. Obviously it's gonna look like you broke a bead and then had to replace it. So what I usually end up doing if I break beads is just starting over. So here we are, we've got the tail up, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna run the thread circular around these two beads right here. So down through the neighbor, up through the original one we came through, and then down through the neighbor, what a friendly neighbor, and up through the original bead that we came through. And I can already feel it's getting a little bit tight in there. So I'm going to just run this down through the neighbor one more time. And that just kind of anchors everything. I mean, the goal here is to just make sure that our piece doesn't fall apart. And so the way that we do that is by securing the threads really well. So that's like, we weave them and then we reinforce them. And then the last step that we're gonna do here, you can see that I'm gonna cut with my little scissors here and leave just a little tiny tag. Sometimes it'll fall down and hide there, but there it is. Push it up a little bit if you need some visual. And then I'm gonna take my lighter and just melt it. And you have to be careful not to hold the heat to all the threads for too long, otherwise you will burn through your threads. So what I did there, and you can kind of see, but it's not visible, so you know, it's not so visible that you can see it, but you can see that tiny little plastic nub right there where it's melted, and that just helps to keep the line reinforced. And if you can stand it, what I like to do when I melt it is just put my thumb and press right away. It helps to kind of spread it out a little bit and make the nub a little bit like fatter, so there's no way it can wind its way back through any of the beads. Okay, so we're going to be moving on to the fringe now, which is this. We have these kind of beautiful rainbow beads that we're going to be using, and I'm just going to be putting them on in random order, but you can obviously pick through and choose colors that are, you know, that mean something to you or that you really like, or obviously choose things that, you know, if you're trying to go for a little bit of a pattern, that kind of thing. I'm gonna thread, so we have this original working thread coming out of the bottom here now. And we're gonna thread the end of that back onto our big eye beading needle. Okay. So opening up the center there, needle back through, and pull it down. Okay. So the fringe is really, how much fringe you want is really up to you. Sometimes what we do is build a long middle one and then shorten it up on the side so that it kind of tapers. And I think that that's the kind of fringe that I'm going to do. Alternately, you can make them all the same length, or you can make them kind of like angular, or just whatever shape that you're going through. It can be totally random, just whatever shape you're going for is great. There's really no rules when it comes to making fringe. It can be just whatever feels right. So I'm just going to be adding some of these colors. And that length feels right for the sides. And then what I'm going to be doing is adding 1 to 2 beads as I go along. This is the other reason why it's lovely to have an odd count on your base here, because if you're doing a bit of a taper, your middle one will be the longest one, and then everything else kind of gets shorter on the side. So it makes it nice and even. So now we've got our beads on. What we want to do, and you can hold your thread down with your finger if it's helpful, then we're going to separate the first bottom bead, and we're going to go up all of the beads above it and into the 2 first beads stacked here on our base row. And then we're going to pull all the way through. So there's our first fringe. Okay, so now we're coming up through these beads, or maybe it looks like we're coming down through these beads. So what we want to do is we want to put our needle back through the neighboring beads, the 2 of them. We're going to be working through the full stack here. And then through. And how many beads did I pick up here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I'm going to pick up 12 now. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you can see it kind of, it's a little bit longer. And we're going to separate that bottom bead, go up through all the beads before it, and up and up and up through those 2 beads of the foundation row of our topper here. You know what, my needle is not going to go through all of them, so I'm just going to move my fringe beads down while I poke my needle through. There. You can see. Sorry, I'm going to be turning my piece around a little bit. I'm right-handed, so it makes it easier for me to kind of pull the thread up. Oh, so this happens sometimes where we catch the little loop on the end on the rest of the piece, which is what I have done. So just be careful. You can always like unpick it and maneuver it down, but it's certainly a little bit of a task. So bear with me while I get my loop off here. I just had to untangle my beads here, and now they're untangled. So my thread is coming up through this second set of beads, and I'm gonna put my needle down through the third set of beads. And I added 12 beads, and I want this to be a bit of kind of a taper, so I'm gonna continue to add 1 until I get to the middle, then I'll decrease 1. So I added 12, I'm gonna add 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So again, separating that very bottom bead, our needle goes up through the fringe, and then if it will extend, if not, you can just load your beads, your fringe beads onto the thread, right, like this. And then you can poke your needle up through those foundation beads, those 2 foundation beads, like that. Okay, it's looking really good. Okay, so we are on to 14 beads now. Okay, so working with the fringes can get a little bit tricky as you have more of them. So just do your best to kind of keep the ones that came before your working fringe out of the way. It's okay if they get tangled. Just like I said, don't pull the thread too tight. Don't pull the thread too tight. And just be gentle with it, and it'll all come untangled. Okay, so separating the bottom bead up through all the beads that came before it, pushing them onto the thread, and then we're going to be going up through the 2 foundation beads and pull it through. So I can already tell that I am not gonna have enough SureLine to be able to finish my fringes. And that's okay. We do our best to estimate how much length we're gonna need. But at the end of the day, sometimes it just happens. It's just based on the size of, the beads that you're using, how many fringes you're putting on, that kind of thing. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is change the thread, and then we'll carry on. So I'm going to show you how to do that in case this happens to you. What we're going to do is just like we did with the tail thread that we had our stopper bead on that came out of this bead right here. We are going to weave the end of this this SureLine up, and we're going to find two beads above that we can kind of wrap it around. And the higher that you can go up, the better, because we're going to have to wrap another thread somewhere and then weave it back down. So we're working it. Where am I here? Let's go up one more. Okay, and we don't, as a rule, we don't wrap edge beads because you don't want to see, this is clear SureLine, so you don't see it very much anyway, but you don't want to see extra threads on the border here. So we always try to kind of wrap our threads in the middle. That way, if you have a side of your work that is more tidy than the other, you can always, if you're making earrings, you can always set the tidy side as the front and the less tidy side as the back. And when you're working in brick stitch, you're always going to have a side that shows more thread than the other, and that's just the way it goes. We always try to use a thread that's the most invisible as possible. Like if you're working dark colors, you can use I have some black WildFire. This fishing line just comes in clear, so it's very versatile, but yeah, the goal is to hide the threads as much as possible. Okay, so I've wrapped the end of my working thread around those beads a couple of times, and like I did before, I'm gonna give it a little cut. Oops. Leave a little tail there to make a little melting up. Just like that, and push it down with my thumb. Perfect. I'm not going to move my lighter too far from me because we're going to do the same. I'm just unspooling. Yeah, I'm going to go with about 3 more feet of my FireLine. Just so that I don't have to run into the possibility of running out again. You want to change your threads as, you know, few times as possible. And then rethreading this needle here. If you didn't run out of FireLine or thread, whatever you're using, and you didn't need to change, you can just skip ahead in the video. Okay, so I've wrapped my other sets of FireLines up here, so I'm going to, because I'm going to be working through this middle bead now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap these lower beads because I don't need to climb so high. Those threads are out of the way now. So I want my thread to be coming down out of the bottom of this bead right here. So I'm going to come up through its right hand neighbor, and then you want to pull it through, leave a little bit of a tail, and yeah, we're gonna cut it off, but just so you have a little bit of something to grab hold of if you need to. So down through that bead, and I'm going to show you how to test this for strength. So you can see you're pulling the tail, and that's okay. You can pull it quite short as long as you don't lose it while you're weaving this around. Up. I think like 3 or 4 times is usually the amount. Make sure that it's catching. 3 or 4 times is usually the amount before, like that you would wrap before it stops slipping. So, but you want to test that before moving on. So I think I wrapped it 3, and I'm gonna give it a tug, but I can see when I tug it that this tail is still moving, which means it's not quite secure yet. So let's go around one more time. We'll see if that helps. Ooh, it's getting tight in there. Okay, sorry, it took me a second to get my needle back through. That's what happens when the beads get full. So I'm pulling it, I'm giving it, you know, a tight little pull, and that tail is no longer moving. So that the FireLine is secure now. We can go ahead and clip it. Oops. And just gonna melt that end right there and squish it with my finger. Just be careful not to burn your finger on the hot plastic. If you're new to this and you are not an adult, maybe have an adult help you out with the ends, with the finishing, just because we want the craft to be safe for everybody. It's not safe to play with fire. There's some safety hazards that need to be thought of. So if you're not a grown-up doing this activity, then you want to ask your parent or whoever's with you that's an adult to help you with the finishing. Okay, so now I've just gone ahead and pulled my SureLine, the new section of SureLine, down through these middle beads, and I ended with 14 on this fringe, so now I'm going to go to 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so just as the previous fringes, and that's looking really cute, I'm going to separate that last bead and then come up through all of its friends. You can move them down onto the thread. That helps give room. And then we're just going to be going up through those 2 beads, those foundation beads again. Good. Okay. So now that we've kind of established how getting the fringe on goes, if your fringe gets stuck, like sometimes the thread won't move, the easiest thing to do is just grab it by this last bead and then give the your thread a tug from the top, and that should suck it all up there. Okay, so now that we've established how we get the fringe on, and you can see that this little angular shape is taking place, and that's the way that I want it to go. That's kind of a very traditional style of fringe. So my next fringes are gonna reverse in order. So this one has 15, the next one will have 14, 13, 12, and then we'll end with 11. So you can carry on with your fringes, and I will meet you here at the end, and then we'll talk about getting the jump ring and the keychain finding on. Okay, so here we are at the end with our beaded fringe, and I actually really love the way that these random rainbow colors worked out. Kind of reminds me of like decoration corn. It's just like really pretty and vibrant, and these glass pony beads have a nice weight and a nice sound to them. Okay, so we are officially on to the last step, and that is just assembling the keychain. So I'm going to use my little pliers, and I'm going to take my little jump ring and I'm going to open it just like that. And I don't usually handle my jump rings with my hands, because once it's open and I'm holding it with the pliers, it's just way easier to be able to maneuver it by just continuing to hold it. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add 2 jump rings, because this little one here does not get us far enough away from the keychain finding to be able to this single jump ring doesn't get us far enough away from the keychain ring to be able to fit with the bead there. So I am actually going to add a second jump ring, and I will update the materials list at the end. Okay, so we've got a second jump ring there, and we've just got it snapped on to the end of the keychain finding here. And there you go. Cute little keychain. Put that on your keys, put that on your bag, give it to your mom or your dad, a friend. Just wear it on your backpack. These these little charms are a great way of just dressing something up in something that you learned. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and feel free to leave me comments if you have any questions. I'll also leave a link to my Etsy shop in the description, and you can also follow me on Instagram at Heartberry Studio, and feel free to connect with me through Etsy if you have any questions.